fallout is nothing more than particles of matter in the air made radioactive by nuclear explosions.
Welcome back to the Classic Fallout Iceberg series. We've got a lot more entries to cover about the older games, from the cancelled Fallout film to... This is Volume 3, and let's get right into it. Joshua Graham, also known as the Burned Man, is a fan-favorite character from Fallout New Vegas, appearing in the DLC expansion Honest Hearts. He was a Mormon missionary who, alongside a man named Edward Solo, founded Caesar's Legion, converting and conquering wasteland tribes into an expansionist empire replicating the Roman Empire. Solo became Caesar, Joshua became his first legate, and then Joshua led Legion forces to defeat during the First Battle of Hoover Dam, so he became the Burned Man. Covered in pitch, set ablaze, and tossed into the Grand Canyon as punishment. By some miracle, Joshua lives, and by Honest Hearts has renewed his faith. He's a religious character on the path to redemption, and many players love his lines and story.
In a world filled with misery and uncertainty, it is a great comfort to know that, in the end, there is light in the darkness.
Again, he's a fan favorite for a good reason, so it might interest some to know that he was first set to appear in the cancelled Fallout 3 or Project Van Buren, having had much of his character reworked for New Vegas. So, if so much got changed about him, what would Joshua Graham have originally been like? For starters, he wasn't the Burned Man. He was the Hanged Man, found hanging in Fort Abandon, and still alive somehow. Release him, and he becomes a strong early game companion, with some notable drawbacks. In Van Buren, Joshua starts off as an evil character. You're not finding a man in search of redemption. You're finding someone in need of it. He'll antagonize local tribes, mistranslate their words to create conflict, and cause problems with other companions, making a pacifist run hard. He'll also carry the Jinx trait, making a playthrough itself hard. But with enough good old charisma, you can convince the Hanged Man to change his ways. Or not. You can also decide not to recruit him and just let him hang if you want. To me, what stands out the most about Van Buren's Joshua is the idea of a companion influencing the player. We've seen in the series how an evil player can influence a character, but what about an evil character influencing the player? Lying and mistranslating to cause conflicts, trying to warp a player's worldview in the process, and make them act the way they want. There's a lot of potential here, and it could have been really cool to see. While I like the Joshua Graham we did get in New Vegas, I do wonder what the Burned Man would have been like as the Hanged Man. We won't have these games back. We probably won't get another Fallout with the same old school spirit. The spirit of role-playing, of delving into dark, morbid settings of mankind's reconstruction, not afraid to take risks and challenge players. We did get New Vegas, but we also really lucked out with that one. And now, Bethesda doesn't want to outsource the franchise anymore. Maybe they'll have to concede on that with Microsoft being their current owner, which allegedly is pushing for another Fallout to be released sooner than later. If Bethesda isn't ready, maybe Microsoft would give another company a shot at a spin-off, such as Obsidian Entertainment, who they also acquired. However, with how much the game industry has changed, I don't think we'd get another great Fallout game. Heck, I'm even reluctant for Obsidian to get another crack at Fallout. A big thing is Chris Avellone being gone, one of their best writers. And he didn't just leave the company, he had a complete falling out with it, claiming Obsidian attempted to have him sign a separation agreement that removed his right to work on RPGs, knowing the financial issues he was having with his family. I know the decisions about Avalon were done by higher-ups and not the artists or designers who work hard on those teams. But have we gotten the same quality as past Obsidian games recently? I don't think so. As flawed and janky as those past games are to people, can we really say we take Avowed or the Outer Worlds over Knights of the Old Republic 2? Over Alpha Protocol? Or heck, Fallout New Vegas? New Vegas really was lightning in a bottle. And with how different things are now, I don't see a follow-up reaching that same level of greatness. I wish it would, but after the Outer Worlds, where Tim and Leonard got another shot at an RPG, I don't know. I don't see Obsidian or Bethesda or anyone releasing a great Fallout game like the originals. I don't see devs taking the same risks as those games, and I don't see us getting them back. What I do see, however, is a future where we'll see the spirit of the original games return, just with a different name and skin. We've already had the likes of Atom RPG and its follow-up, but there's a lot more to look forward to as well. We're gonna get a sequel to the Total Conversion mod Olympus 2207. There's the New Blood interactive game with art by Red 88 Guns. There's a series of ancient Greek mythology games coming out, and whatever Black Designer and the Sonora devs are cooking for their original RPG. I'm sure there's more than that. But bottom line is, I do believe we'll eventually get games that are like Classic Fallout again. It's just that we won't be getting any classic Fallouts ever again. Van Buren would have failed. Back during the Brotherhood of Steel entry, I mentioned how Interplay was in such dire straits that no Hail Mary game would have saved them. That includes Van Buren, no matter its quality. We've had plenty of phenomenal games that failed to save their companies. Look no further than Looking Glass Studios, who brought us classics like the Thief games and System Shock 2, but were unable to save themselves financially. If Van Buren had released, to glowing praise no less, would that have truly been enough to save a company circling the drain? Probably not. There's also the problem that consoles were arguably the bigger markets in the early 2000s. I think an old school RPG like Van Buren would have suffered against the mass appeal of simpler console games. That's where developers were going, streamlining their products for. In that case, who knows the reception Van Buren would have gotten? For all we know, it could have suffered sales-wise and been unfairly judged by people who don't know how to play games. I do wish it came out, but more than likely, Van Buren would have failed. Skynet is an AI companion in Fallout 2, and he will betray any players who insult it. I mean, it should make sense not to mess with a character whose name is a Terminator reference, but if you really want to, be prepared to deal with the consequences. In researching this entry, I also found some talk about a glitch in which Skynet will straight up randomly betray the player, so I thought I'd mention that as well. The Master was responsible for creating the Psychers, a group of humans with psychic powers. This is a reference to the Warhammer series, which has its own Psychers. I'm not saying it's completely unknown, but I am surprised more people don't bring up the fact that the Master actually had psychic powers, and the Psychers stand as the biggest proof of that fact. Tim Kaine is in the game files of Fallout 1. Want proof? Go to the credits, type in boom, and then this will happen. Also, changing the icon larger than 32 by 32 replaces the game logo with Tim's head. So Tim is in the game files. Like the cut quests, there were planned locations in Fallout 1 and 2 which got cut, mainly due to a lack of time to properly implement them. For example, in Fallout 1, there was the Shrine, the hideout of the Vipers gang who we talked about earlier in the series. This would have been a cultish camp, with the pit right in the middle of it, containing tunnels and mutant vipers that the gang fed their sacrifices. These were usually prisoners stored in the cages, prison pits made to house future gifts to the serpent gods, and guarded by the group's most elite warriors called the Crimson Tongue. Finally, there was a ceremonial lodge called the Hall of Ascension, and a meeting room of government duties called the Sanctuary, where the Viper's leader and High Priest Asp resides, his throne being made of the skull and bones of two great serpents slain by his father Faust, who founded the gang. There would have also been another gang base located by the LA Boneyard, which belonged to the Jackals. This was a cannibal group entirely cut out of Fallout 1, and so was their home base. Presumably, it would have served as a kind of dungeon, since the Jackals were hostile. While not cut out of the game, the warehouse in the Boneyard was once completely different. It was originally intended to be the home base of the Rippers gang, which would most definitely be a dungeon crawl, leading you to kill their leader, the king of the Boneyard himself, Tangler. In the final game, a lot of the gangs would be dropped, and the Ripper's home would be occupied by a different kind of Ripper. Utopia, or Irvine, California, was set to be a paradise protected by giant steel walls and killer robots, the results of the Irvine Land Corporation. Picture a mix between Delta City and, Wall-E. The people live in a perfect pre-war-like society, but they are hopelessly stupid and reliant upon the robots, who are controlled by a supercomputer in the center of Utopia. Right by this place would have been the Interplay Studios office building, with Brian Fargo's still intact Dodge Viper and skeletons of the employees still trapped inside the building. The game would have made the Viper out to be something that could be repaired and driven around, but it never truly could be, meaning that the Interplay designers deserved to get nuked after all. Lastly, the Burrows was an oasis filled with jungle-like plant life and horrific furry creatures, but we'll get to that later in this video. As for Fallout 2, a whole lot of places got cut out, including the primitive tribe. So, the first companion you can meet in Fallout 2 is Sulek, a tribal whose village was attacked by slavers and whose sister got kidnapped by them. There's no resolution to these problems, because Sulek's village and sister aren't in the game, only some of his fellow tribals, who appear in a random encounter. But originally, Sulek's village, the primitive tribe, was going to be in the game. They would have been a highly spiritual people. They believe spirits influence the natural world, and try talking to them by piercing their own noses with bones. Next, there would have been the Abbey of Lost Knowledge, and this was a really cool idea. I wish it was in the game. The place was designed by Tim Kaine before he left Fallout 2's production, and was basically an homage to the post-apocalyptic novel A Canticle for Leibowitz. It's about a Catholic monastery preserving books and knowledge in a post-World War III wasteland, serving as inspiration for Fallout 1 and the Brotherhood of Steel faction, who, in a similar fashion, preserved stuff from the old worlds except it was weapons and technology. Meanwhile, the Abbey in Fallout 2 would have been a monastery preserving books north of Vault City. It would have been comprised of a bunch of pacifist monks, who allowed anyone to come and read their collection of information, which could help you in completing certain quests in the Wasteland. However, later in the game, their books would be confiscated by the Brotherhood of Steel, and you'd be asked to help in the matter. Why it got cut out, Tim doesn't know, but I'd imagine the 9-month production time didn't help. The village would have been a small town outside of Vault City, which was desperately trying not to be enslaved. Fending off Vault City soldiers with domesticated mole rats, the player would have been able to help them or doom them. The She Submarine would have been a place you had to go in order to deactivate its auto-defense system. It was intended to be another step in the main quest, so you could drive the tanker to the oil rig. And it got axed because even the devs felt Fallout 2 was long enough. According to the Fallout Bible, there was an idea for an Earth Protection Agency which was the site of a pre-war industrial waste management company. Surrounded by a lake of toxic, mutative sludge, it would have become the home of the Doctor, who would experiment on animals and people alike. It's kind of a retread of the Master, so it kind of makes sense that it got reworked. The second draft of this idea was written by Chris Avallone, who renamed it the Environmental Protection Agency. But even this didn't make the final cut. Arguably the biggest location cut out of the game This would have been a 7-story dungeon filled with all manner of weird science, a jungle floor filled with Venus man-traps, quirky hologram characters, including one that speaks through binary, a talking toaster. While it didn't make it into Fallout 2, you can really see the seeds for what would become Old World Blues in this location. The Fallout Bible also gives us a taste of Fallout 2's early story concept, where an intelligent computer ran a town known as TV Town, with its inhabitants all androids based off shows from the 50s and 60s. Wastelanders were vying for the town's technology, and the player would even go to space in this draft. In the second draft that followed, there was sort of a giant land fortress roaming the wasteland, although there's some contention whether it was supposed to belong to the Master's army or to the Brotherhood of Steel. I lean towards Leonard's statements the most, which claim it was the mobile command center of the Brotherhood, who would be in league with the descendant of Vault 13's Overseer. Area 51 would have been a ruined base filled with scientists, including the talking head for Lynette, who was reused for Vault City. For the next 2 areas, these can actually still be accessed in the game, but just some quick context first. Each location is split up into different maps, which you can access through the world map. There's hotkeys to immediately jump to the specific map that you want, by pressing the number correlating to the listed area. So for example, with the den, 1 would send you to the west side, and 2 would send you to the east side. And that would ordinarily be it. But if you press 3, you'll go to a cut map called Den Residential. Despite looking finished and still being accessible in the main game, you can't actually interact all that much with NPCs here. There's even another version of Smitty and his junkyard here. Similarly, another secret area exists in San Francisco, which is the Hubologist space shuttle interior. But this one looks a lot more blatantly unfinished. We'll talk about it more later down the line during its own entry. Lastly, there was the Love Shack, the HQ of the LGBTQ faction, the Rainbow Confederation, that was hostile against straight characters. Honestly, this just sounds like something out of early South Park. Not really Fallout, and fortunately, it got cut. The first Fallout movie refers to the cancelled Fallout film adaptation made by Interplay Films, a films division of Interplay Entertainment. Apparently, there was a partnership with Dark Horse Entertainment to work on the Fallout film, but nothing ever came out of it, and the division was disbanded. However, in 2011, Brent Friedman, a writer best known for the Dark Skies series and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, revealed that he was once commissioned to write up a film treatment for the cancelled Fallout film. More than that, he posted it online. Keep in mind that a film treatment isn't a script, it's just a glorified synopsis of a film. So all we really have is a Cliff Notes version of the movie, but nevertheless, we do get a vivid picture of what could have been.
Mother, you're alive. Too bad you will die.
In short, the film would have been a Hollywood retelling of Fallout 1, with all that implies. For a longer breakdown, we start in Vault 13, where the main character, just called the Hero, is starting to suffer the Vault equivalent of cabin fever. There's an interesting bit about how the Vaults have a fake simulation of pre-war Los Angeles, which helps citizens cope with life forever underground. But it's no longer working on our main character, who has a breakdown. He wants out. Even as the son of the Vault supervisor, and with an arranged marriage on the way, complete with a marriage kit, he yearns for something better. Fortunately, the Hero lucks out, being selected along with 3 others to go outside searching for a water chip to fix the Vault's water purification system. He gets this task from the Vault Elders who run the Vault, comprised of its first-generation survivors, sorta similar to the Brotherhood of Steel's Council of Elders we saw in Fallout 1. The Vault Elders keep the water chip crisis a secret in order to not cause chaos, and tell the Hero that he must return with the chip, or that Vault 13 is toast. So, our party of Vault Dwellers leaves with survival kits as well as money for Radio Shack, only to immediately lose the hero's friend to a raider group using a phone booth as bait. Notice that instead of raiders, they're called scavengers, and this is the case throughout the whole treatment for some reason. In early game fashion, the party runs away from combat, and then find the ruins of Vault 8, where another water chip is said to be. Only the place was destroyed by super mutants, and the water chip is no good. The hero sets off an alarm, escapes obstacles, then runs into a character literally referred to as Mad Max. Max captures the characters and goes to kill them. But when he realizes they're Vault Dwellers, Max makes a deal with them. In exchange for letting them live and helping them find a water chip, they'll give him a Garden of Eden creation kit, something the hero has inspected for his Vault job. The party then heads off to the hub to trade for a water chip, on an ATV I might add, and discover that LA is a jungle due to the use of multiple Geks. Mutants also apparently rule the place like the Mafia. The group run into the raiders from earlier, selling their fallen companion's belongings, and his organs. Fighting ensues. They dispatch the raiders, only to be arrested by hub guards and brought to its mayor, Decker. In what's probably my favorite part of the film treatment, Decker's office is the last standing movie theater in town, and he's watching his own favorite scene from the film Blade Runner. He says, now that would have been a fun future. It's not really all that in line with the world of Fallout, but it is a cool concept seeing a character watching media about a different dark future and how their own dark world twists their perception of it. Then Decker makes an offer. 1 water chip in exchange for 2 party members, one being the girl companion. The hero is put into a tough moral dilemma. Give up his companions, his fellow Vault Dwellers, in exchange for saving the Vault. And this might be the only option he has. Still reluctant, he gets the night to think a decision over in Decker's nightclub, where he meets a historian who's writing a book on World War III. Vault 13 just so happens to be its final chapter, and the Vault Dweller learns something colossal. The Great War wasn't started by China, or any enemy nation for that matter. The creator of the Vaults launched the first nuke to fulfill his own zealous prophecy of nuclear annihilation. And what followed was just a natural chain reaction of mutually assured destruction. Vault-Tec caused the Great War. Meanwhile, Max reveals his tragic backstory, being a boy from Vault 8 who survived the attack with his father and journeyed out to start life anew with a Gek. His dad got killed, and he became a slave to Decker, forced into building the hub before escaping back to Vault 8. All of a sudden, super mutants invade, looking for the Vault Dwellers. One of the Vault companions says he knows a way out, only to betray them to Decker and his men, who are also in league with the mutants. Then, Max betrays the group, putting his gun against the girl's head and demanding a Gek from the mutants, and he shoots Decker for good measure. The mutants strike up a deal with Max to give him a Gek and safe passage to his ATV if he gives up Vault 13, which he does. Max drives off, and the 3 Vault Dwellers are imprisoned, with the traitor companion saying he was just trying to do what was best for the Vault. Yeah, I've heard that one before. He offers to be the first to go with the mutants once they start their experiments, and immediately gives up Vault 13's location in the process. He's dipped into FEV by the Master, who in this adaptation was a survivor of the Great War who couldn't afford Vault entry, so he created the FEV to help people survive the wasteland. He has this cartoon evil plan where he made LA as alluring as possible to capture travelers and experiment upon them to create the perfect master race. His super mutants are sterile, so he hopes by stealing pristine humans from vaults, they'll come out of his experiments as pristine mutants. They'll turn out differently as super mutants compared to the irradiated wasteland survivors. Basically, the Master wants the hero and girl to serve as the Adam and Eve of a pure mutant race of his making. Fortunately, Max has a change of heart after being betrayed by the mutants and getting a dud Gek. He steals some nifty plasma weapons and busts the Vault Dwellers out of captivity, saying this was all part of his plan. Yeah, sure thing. But to be fair, he does give them a water chip that he snagged off the mutants, and they travel back to Vault 13 after a high-speed car chase. Back home, our heroes ask to be let inside, thinking themselves to be the Vault's saviors. Except, the Overseer denies their request. Turns out, Vault 13 had working water chips they could use all along. This decision to send people outside was just about purifying the collective conscious, since, in the Overseer's words, discontent is contagious. Worst disease known to Vault dwellers. Even with the Vault elders being upset with this, the heroes are left outside, where the Master and his mutants come to ambush them. Chaos breaks out. The hero's father dies. Many Vault dwellers perish in the battle that ensues. In probably the dumbest part of the script, the Master recognizes the Overseer as the person who started World War III. And I just can't take it seriously because it just sounds really corny. But humanity triumphs. The Master is slain after a fake-out death where he injects Max with FEV, forcing a reluctant hero to make a true, tough decision. It's a decision that's necessary for him to become a true leader, ready to face the future with a Gek and lead a new generation into the fallout. Arroyo is settled, the hero and girl get busy, and cue happy ending. And that's the Fallout film treatment. I left out a lot of little details, but the full PDF will be in the video description below for anyone who wants to read it through. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of what was on offer here, and even Friedman says there's things he'd change. I guess my biggest gripe is that it doesn't feel like a Fallout film. It has things like the Overseer of Vault 13, the Master, but it just adds needless changes to them that removes nuance instead of adding anything. Like with the decision to have Vault 13's Overseer cause the end of the world. Why? And the Master isn't given any self-reflection. His death scene, one of the best moments in the franchise, with him having this devastating revelation, is changed into a goofy fake-out death. Why? Why not go with his death in the games? Wasn't that more effective? A monster realizing the pain and suffering he's caused, deciding to destroy himself and his work, with the main character literally referred to as Hero and another as Mad Max. The movie reads like it could have been any pulpy, post-apocalyptic action movie. It doesn't come off as Fallout. There's no sense that this is a desolate journey where characters sometimes must do morally dubious things to survive. For example, the main character gets bailed out of making a genuinely tough moral decision getting the water chip, and the one character who does betray his companions for the greater good of the Vault is a generic traitor character who becomes a mutant bad guy. There's nothing about Necropolis or stealing their water chip. There's some weird things like the FEV being treated like a death sentence and Max having to be put down. The ending is happy and ties things together in a nice bow, with setup and payoff about the longing of the fish. Meanwhile, the game ending is bittersweet and makes you reflect about all you've done, whether it was really worth it. It leaves more of an impact, in my opinion. Another note about the film is its twist with Vault-Tec being responsible for causing the Great War. That's the twist in the Fallout show, and there's been some discourse online that perhaps the showrunners borrowed the idea from the movie treatment, and it just stinks. I feel it just answers a question that reduces the message of this franchise, that war is inevitable due to human nature, that it's just part of us collectively to have that potential for destruction. You seriously risk getting away from that idea when it turns out how collectively the nations of humanity kind of have a pass because the singular rich evil corporation actually started the war, that there really is a scapegoat. I don't know, guys. I know some people like the Vault-Tec twist, but I find it really lame. What sucks is, I do think the film had potential. There are things I like here. Little stuff about Vault life, where there's simulations of pre-war America to keep people happy, or pre-arranged marriages to keep family trees from getting circular. The game's dark humor's in here. We don't get to see the Brotherhood of Steel for once, and that's solid. They wouldn't have to be the series' marketing material for the upteenth time. Lastly, the idea to retell the first game's story would honestly work, I feel. There is genuine potential and good things about the film treatment, but perhaps it's best it didn't go any further than that.
Too bad you will die.
Caves can appear during random encounters, and though they might seem like a background detail, they are fully explorable. Go inside a cave, and you'll have the chance of encountering anything from geckos to deathclaws, as well as treasure. Fallout New Vegas has a fan-favorite companion named Boone, a former NCR sharpshooter who isn't in Fallout Tactics. However, his voice actor Jason Marsden is part of the Tactics voice cast. He voices two characters in the game, a Raider gang leader named Horace, and a Brotherhood quartermaster named Hassan. The Horace character has spawned a YouTube video called Boone in Fallout Tactics, and while it's not the same character, it's the same voice.
Let's see what you trained monkeys can show, little old Horace.
I need someone I can trust. You're a stranger. That's a start.
Mikey Frazier, son of Iguana Bob Frazier, is the owner of Son of Bob's Iguana Bits. This is unlike his father, who served Iguana Bits out of his Prime Choice Select, which he got from a doctor selling him human bodies. Iguana Bits is people. While it doesn't seem Mikey carries on the family tradition of making cannibals out of customers, there's a faction of well-dressed, well-mannered characters that are secretly cannibals in New Vegas, called the White Glove Society. Mikey Frazier was well-dressed and secretive himself. To be honest, I don't think there's any connection here, since there's a 40-year gap between Fallout 2 and New Vegas. But if you're fine with a huge stretch, then sure, Mikey Frazier works for the White Glove Society. Elvis Presley was a titan of the music industry in the 20th century. Called the King of Rock and Roll, or the King for short, his memory lives on through tribute groups, impersonators, and popular media like Fallout. Elvis made his first appearance in the series way back in Fallout 1, as a framed photo next to a crashed UFO. This seems to refer to the conspiracy that Elvis didn't truly die in real life, but was instead abducted by aliens. Either that, or aliens were fans of Elvis the same way Fallout 2's NPCs were. A total of 7 framed photos can be found in the game. And then there's Fallout New Vegas, with an entire faction called the Kings. These guys are a gang of Elvis impersonators who dress up and imitate the man who had an entire school of impersonation dedicated to him.
Near as I can tell, it was some sort of religious institution. Oh, I know it says school out front, but everything in here seems to be related to the worship of some guy from back in the day. People used to come here to learn about him, to dress like him, move like him, to be him. If that's not worship, I don't know what is.
Unfortunately, there's yet to be any Elvis music in the series due to licensing costs. Even New Vegas, which had the Kings, had to steer clear of the Kings' music in order to afford an actual soundtrack. Hopefully, with how big the series has gotten, we might actually get to hear the King of Rock and Roll one day. I'm not entirely sure what this entry refers to, but it could be a reference to some of Ian's comments in the Tell Me About Dialogue feature. For example, while you can ask Ian about locations like Necropolis, you can also ask him about topics such as war and psychics. And you wouldn't know you could do this unless you manually typed that out and asked him. So it's kind of like secret dialogue. The calculator from Fallout Tactics is a better version of Skynet. The calculator is an AI designed to oversee Vault Zero, and the entire Vault network across America. Since Vault Zero housed the greatest minds and wallets in the US, it would gather data to determine the best possible course of action for humanity's reconstruction. And when the time was right, it would facilitate protocols for leading the Vault survivors out into a wasteland using a robot army. which would also conveniently kill any mutant life in the way. The calculator was designed to oversee the vaults and humanity's protection. Even when it was seriously underfunded and ended up short-circuiting, it still carried out that initiative. Only, it followed orders too literally. Any human survivors in the wasteland with radiation exposure and mutant genes were considered mutants to be purged by the calculator. So yeah, not good. But according to the Sentry, the calculator, with all of its flaws, is still a better version of Skynet from Fallout 2. It's an AI made for helping scientists with research, including work on cybernetic brains, the same stuff that powers the calculator. This is just another fun little fan theory in the vein of Mikey working for the White Glove Society. Was Skynet some sort of prototype for the calculator, which was the bigger, better vision for this sort of technology? Personally, I don't think so, but still, it's a fun idea. The hairy Deathclaw could mean one of two things. The original concept art for the Deathclaw was that of a hairy mutant that was a mix between a wolverine and a brown bear. Apparently, an unused Tarrasque model from Planescape Torment ended up becoming the basis for the final Deathclaw, and the rest is history. Then you have the hairy Deathclaw that is in Fallout Tactics' Brotherhood of Steel. Living in the Midwestern states like Illinois and Kansas, this Deathclaw variant has fur instead of scales, as well as the capacity to speak English, much like the intelligent Deathclaws of Fallout 2. They're able to become allies to the Midwestern chapter of the Brotherhood, serving as strong warriors. The canon of tactics being the way it is, Schrodinger's retcon fully applies. They exist and simultaneously don't in the Fallout universe. Maybe we'll see them in a future Fallout game, assuming they weren't wiped out like the unholy abominations they are. Ian died in Necropolis. Fallout 2's manual, The Vault Dweller's Memoirs, helped give us a recap of what happened in Fallout 1, while also establishing a canon account of the events that went down. And according to that account, Ian died when the Vault Dweller went to Necropolis, burned to death by a super mutant's flamer. That's pretty brutal, and it's sad to think that canonically, there was no saving your companion. Ian died early into your travels, and then Dogmeat passed as well. Now, in the game, yes, you can save Dogmeat, and the same with Ian. It's hard, but not impossible. According to the memoirs, though, Dogmeat died at Mariposa to a force field's energy, a loyal companion to the end. Creepypasta is a name for internet horror stories and legends which are copy and pasted throughout social media. Copy and paste stories being referred to as copypasta, and with the creepy factor added in, you get creepypasta. There exists a couple of creepypastas for the modern Fallout games, including the Fallout 3 number station prophesizing the end of our own world, and the Cut Lone Wolf radio quest in New Vegas, where players could help a depraved radio host kill kidnapped children. Again, these are all just fictional, scary stories. They're meant to creep people out and get them thinking there might be something spooky in their games. The same way a good campfire story might scare someone into thinking there's something in the woods. And while there isn't anything evil lurking in the classic Fallouts, there is a creepypasta about them, called Fallout 2's Toxic Caves. I was originally gonna do a quick breakdown of the story, but come on, I'd be missing out on my opportunity to do a creepypasta reading. I grew up on those, so why the heck not? So sit back, get your lucky Vault 13 canteen out, and enjoy. In Fallout 2, after you beat the game, you can continue playing. Remember that defunct vault near the beginning? The one with the toxic sludge on the ground and the elevator where you can kill golden geckos. It's called Toxic Caves on the world map, but it is clearly a very small vault with 3 levels. including the first cave level, where you take a ladder down to the actual vault structure. Well, if you have one of the original pressings of the game and you have not patched it, you can return to the toxic caves after the game is over. And if you have the item Heart Pills from the Weston murder quest, you can kill yourself in the elevator. After the usual death scene plays, the screen will stay black without the menu screen opening up. After several minutes, you will begin to hear a hollow, echoey white noise cave sort of sound. The screen will slowly fade back in to find your character in a pile of that nasty biomass goo that was all around the master from the first game. Your character will stand up and the usual ambient soundtrack will start playing, but the white noise will still be there. Explore this new level, but do not pick any locks. Those areas are extremely off limits, and the developers put some very nasty programming tricks into the code to protect their secrets. As you continue farther into the level, you will hear the white noise continue to increase in volume, and the ambient soundtrack you are so used to will exhibit strange artifacts. This may be because of the difficulty of playing two music tracks simultaneously in the Fallout engine, which wasn't designed to be able to do this. Passing locked door after locked door, you will come upon many of the characters you met earlier in the game. Oddly, you only find characters that died, or that would reasonably be expected to die after you last saw them. Like the official endings, the characters found vary depending on how you played the game. If you were the good guy and tried to solve problems without violence, you will only find a few bad guys and unfortunate victims here. If you slaughtered every town, you will see several hundred characters. Regardless of what you did earlier, none of the characters will speak to you or react to any action in any way. They can't be pickpocketed, killed, pushed aside, or healed. If you try to use first aid, doctor, or any healing items on them, the game will tell you in the text box, it's much too late for that, Chosen. It would appear this area is purgatory, or possibly hell, based on being populated entirely by dead characters. The final character, standing just before the final door, is always a player character model from the first Fallout. This is the only character you can interact with, and as you approach, the white noise reaches a crescendo, and the ambient music abruptly cuts out. If you simply bypass him and open the door, the game will play the end credits once again, only with pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki victims in the background. They didn't spell Nagasaki right. I'm gonna leave this in. They didn't spell Nagasaki right. This is an extreme poor taste. Yeah, it is. Come on. This is an extreme poor taste. This is an extreme poor taste, and many have wondered why the creators would be so insensitive. When asked, they deny the sequence exists, and call it a hack that was never in the game at all. After it ends, you're greeted with a typical game over screen, and are booted to the desktop. If you talk to the final character, he will explain that he's in fact the Vault Dweller from the original game, your ancestor. He will tell you that he is disappointed in the way you turned out, and he will turn his back on you, and your character will collapse into a pile of bones and a death animation that I've never seen in the game itself. Afterwards, the game will fade to white and lock up the computer, forcing a hard reset. There is a third option. Those locked doors I mentioned earlier, this is one door. It's always random as to which door, but if you get lucky in picking, you can use any heavy explosive to blow it open. Inside, you will find a single footlocker hold a 10mm pistol with no clip in the picture and no ammo in it. None of your normal 10mm ammo can be used. You can load the gun with the Easter egg found in the basement of New Reno Arms. Fire this into the head of the final character, and the game will cut to an over-the-shoulder video showing a young man playing an unidentified Fallout-like game. Some people claim that this is an early version of either Fallout Tactics or Van Buren, but nothing on the screen seems to fit either of those games. Also, neither of those games had started development at the time of the original pressing of Fallout 2. The video itself is poorly lit, with the apparent intention of being a creepy, but nothing spooky actually happens in the video. The man simply plays the unknown game, and the video slowly fades into your desktop. A cool trick. I'm not really sure how they managed a tragularly translucing screen back then. Another strange trick is that according to many players, the final character always matches the character they most recently played in Fallout 1. Both gender and their apparel at the end of the previous game are represented. At first, this would appear to be a save game hack, much like Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid. But the trick works even if the original Fallout was played on a different computer, without transferring any data to the new PC. It's recommended that you do not turn on any television in your house for several hours after experiencing this extra ending. You will quickly realize that the white noise in the game is identical to the white noise now coming from your television. Cable, satellite, and even antenna, if you still have that, are all somehow incapable of picking up a signal for some time after the secret ending. All internet connections, however, seem to still work. That's how I'm writing this to you now. The funny thing is, I turned my television back off nearly an hour ago, as well as my computer speakers, but I still hear the static getting louder. So, not gonna lie, Classic Fallout Creepypasta did not live up to the hype. This wasn't a good story, but it did have a couple of alright ideas. For example, going off the Metal Gear Solid reference in the story, it seems there was some inspiration taken from the Sorrow boss fight in Metal Gear Solid 3, where players who kill a lot of enemies in a playthrough have a harder time in the fight since they're dealing with all the people they've killed. And in this story, you have the Chosen One dealing with the blood on their hands as well, in a sort of limbo. Maybe a bit of a stretch connecting the two, but I do think that's a solid idea. Same with the game just knowing what your old Fallout 1 character was like, even on different computers. A little out there, yeah, but it could work. It could have been creepy. The story really falls apart when it's made out to be a well-known Easter egg, as if many old-school Fallout players would know that there's a limbo in Fallout 2's first release where you can see your Fallout 1 character and summon the white noise demons. Also, I gotta point out these really weird vocabulary spikes, because it's just kind of funny. I don't believe we know who the original author is, and even though I trashed their writing, I do hope they went on to better things. It's just that no one's gonna lose sleep over Fallout 2's toxic caves. Ghouls were once normal, smooth-skinned humans who, transformed by radiation, became the zombie-looking mutants they are now. But what if you were born a ghoul? I mean, it sounds pretty foul. It's not canon yet, but it almost was. You see, ghouls in the world of Fallout are sterile, much like the super mutants, and this was also the case in Interplay's cancelled Fallout 3. Ghouls could not reproduce. However, there was a planned ghoul-centered location called the Reservation, which was trying to solve this problem. Led by William Clark, a former nuclear physicist turned ghoul god, efforts to bring about ghoul reproduction were well underway, and aided by the crazed Dr. Sebastian, who was zealous in this mission. He was cruel beyond description, requiring the use of normal human beings to carry out his experiments. Remember, ghouls are sterile in the Fallout universe. Regular humans aren't. So in ad-friendly terms, captured humans were required to bring about born ghouls, with success rates as low as 2%. The other 98% didn't work out. As for the born ghouls themselves, they're stated to be a little bit better looking than the regular ghouls, as well as being stronger and faster than them. Viewed by the Reservation ghouls as gods, there's hope that this new generation can reproduce normally. Players with 7 endurance who seduce a born ghoul named Bell wind up proving that's the case, bringing about a Ghoul Jr. I do like the idea of the reservation and the twisted reproduction experiments, which makes it a little disappointing we're probably never going to see something like them. The Fallout franchise is so mainstream now, paired with how people treat uncomfortable ideas, that it'd probably be seen as a risk more than a storytelling opportunity, even if it's shown in the worst possible light. I don't think Bethesda is going to show us born ghouls as they were originally intended. In a sense, as much as the game can allow, the Vault Dweller is whoever we want them to be. The idea being that we decide who this character is. We choose their skills, their attributes, traits. We imagine a background for them. But with that said, some details of the Vault Dweller are set in stone. Notably, the Fallout 2 manual gives us the Vault Dweller's memoirs, his personal writing and account of the events of the first game. They become a definitive character outside of us, with their own writing and memories of their experience. However, there's another, smaller example like this in Fallout 1, where some details of the Vault Dweller get revealed via memories. As the player makes their way to the Master's chamber, they must pass the so-called Corridor of Revulsion. This is where the Master will psionically attack players who don't have a psychic nullifier equipped. Don't have it, you get hallucinations, including one about a forgotten friend of the Vault Dweller, who died. I suppose you could argue this is an implanted memory, but it could just as easily be argued that the Master is genuinely bringing something up from the Vault Dweller's past in order to hurt them. That they did have someone close in their life at one point who died in the vault. How they died is anyone's guess, but I would assume that this was something that happened during the Vault Dweller's childhood, if they were able to easily forget about them. The Vault Dweller buried the memory of their friend once they died, because it was something so traumatic. Remember, death can be a lot for a kid to take in. Then, add in the fact it's another kid like you who dies, a kid who's your friend. Finally, add the fact you're living in a safety shelter, in a culture of protection and perseverance, where you're supposed to be safe. Confronted with something as blunt as death in the circumstance would probably destroy some kids. So, it's no wonder it went into the vault of the Vault Dweller's mind. The Pip-Boy is a series of wearable computers developed by Robco Industries, which served as standard equipment in America's vaults. Like Power Armor or Vault Boy, it's a staple of the series. But what does its name mean? Why call it Pip-Boy exactly? Well, PIP is an acronym for Personal Information Processor, and Boy most likely refers to the boy mascots that appear on the device, Pip-Boy on the old 2000 series and Vault Boy in the newer ones. Also, perhaps the Fallout devs were inspired by portable device naming conventions. For example, take the Sony Walkman or the Nintendo Game Boy. I'm gonna be honest, I think this is just a joke entry. Maybe it's referencing the screaming faces from the Art Deco buildings, in which case, I couldn't find what the origin of those are. I would assume they were digitally designed, but maybe one of the devs' faces was used as a reference or inspiration. The crunch can do that to you, I'd imagine. Other than that, I'm not too certain what this entry means, or if it's serious. Psychers are mutants with psychic powers. We covered them a while back, when I said the Master created these guys. And seemingly, he did. He made a group called Psychers, and they had psychic powers. But here's the thing. According to the Fallout Bible, those guys got wiped out when the cathedral exploded. Yet there's more psychic characters in the world of Fallout long after. So, are these also Psychers? According to some, yes, Psycher could be a catch-all term, and maybe a condition like the ghouls, where incredibly rare circumstances can bring about a mutation, but instead of turning you into an immortal zombie, you're granted psychic powers. As long as their powers aren't too out there, I do like their inclusion in the series. and I do hope to see more of the Psychers in later games. The worst ending of Fallout 1 wasn't included in the game, because the developers were mixed on the whole time limit mechanic. Players have 150 days to find a water chip for Vault 13, and 500 days to stop the Master and his mutant army. Fail to stop them, and they invade Vault 13, giving you the game's worst ending. Originally, Fallout 1 was released with both time limits in the game, but later the devs decided to keep one and axe the worst one. So the worst ending and mutant time limit got removed in a post-launch patch. Necropolis is a city filled with ghouls that appears in Fallout 1, and it's where the Vault Dweller must go to find the water chip. However, that puts players in a really bad spot. They must take the city's water chip, putting the vault before an entire community. It's the easiest route to take, but the most destructive, causing the ghouls to die.
The ghouls of Necropolis learn firsthand the final meaning of dehydration as their city succumbs to the desert sands and the water runs out. Without their water-purifying control chip, they do not survive.
Fortunately though, there is a choice to restore the city's water pump, allowing you to take the chip without dooming anyone. Plus, this is the canon ending to Fallout 1. Necropolis was saved, but unfortunately, it was still doomed. A force of super mutants invaded the city, slaughtering its inhabitants. This is the canon ending.
The mutant attack on Necropolis spares none of its ghoulish inhabitants. After the mutant armies advance, they leave a truly dead city behind them.
The good news is that some of the town apparently survived and fled into the wasteland, rumored to have founded the city of Dayglow. But ultimately, there's just no saving Necropolis. Todd Hates the Games is the idea that Todd Howard hates classic Fallout, if not the franchise as a whole. That he never understood the games, and that the reason the newer ones differ so much from the classics has a more sinister explanation. Honestly, I don't think Todd hates the games, although it would be really sad if that were the case. If the owner of a beloved franchise was just apathetic towards it and looking forward to milking it dry. But I don't think that's the situation here. I'm gonna be optimistic and say Todd does like the games. I'd go as far as to say, at least originally, Bethesda was trying to capture the spirit of the classics. Not entirely succeeding, mind you, but trying. There's too much effort here just to say the old games were hated and discarded. I think it's more likely Bethesda just purposefully caters to the masses since it's easy money. Keep in mind, their narrative guy's philosophy is keep it simple, stupid. So yeah, Todd is a liar, but I don't think he hates Fallout. In Fallout 2, getting killed by an Enclave soldier causes you to get one of 3 Enclave endings.
You fought valiantly, but to no avail. The Enclave triumphs, and soon the entire world dies. You have died, along with everyone else on the Earth. The Enclave triumphs, releasing the FEV virus into the atmosphere. Your death has sealed the fate of everyone else on Earth. The Enclave triumphs, releasing the FEV virus into the atmosphere. Millions die, and the Earth falls silent again.
It's really bleak stuff, but there isn't a nightmare-inducing bad ending cutscene to show it like the bad ending in Fallout 1. In Fallout 2, all you get is a typical death screen with a unique message. I do wish we got something in the same vein as Fallout 1's bad ending, or even an option to join the Enclave. But given the game's short production, it's not too surprising we didn't get to see it. Fallout 1 raccoons, or Slanter, were a race of sentient raccoon mutants who were cut out of the game save for a single holodisk reference. The reason they got cut differ person to person. Tim Kaine says he didn't approve of the Slanter since they didn't fit the style or direction of the game. but developer Scott Campbell says they didn't make it in due to the amount of art production that would be required for adding them. Other things needed to be prioritized during development, so the raccoon people got the axe. Either way, the Slanter were created by Brian Fryermuth, a writer and quest designer on Fallout 1. He wrote a whole document for their village along with Scott, and clearly liked the critters, so I'll put aside my mutant bias for a bit and talk about them in depth. Born in the West Tech Research Facility, the Slanter were originally normal raccoons that were then used as lab animals and exposed to the forced evolutionary virus. According to a holotape not cut out of the game, this led to their rapid growth in size, as well as intelligence and manual dexterity. Eventually, they were all terminated, except for 2 peers that escaped captivity. That would be the end of that if you were just going off of Fallout 1. Some mutant raccoons are out in the wasteland, but according to the design document of the Slanter, this escape led to a raccoon exodus across the wasteland, and the foundation of an entire oasis village called the Burrows. Far from the devastation of the bombs, this was a lush environment which had a river running through it, allowing for plants to spring up and the Slanter to thrive. In fact, it was here where the Slanter named themselves the Tribe of the Slanter, meaning kindred in their language. But while they did live together, factionalism would slowly start creeping in. After Slanter explorers were killed by human gunfire, half the settlement decided to build dens and traps to keep themselves safe. These were the den dwellers, keen on living like animals, whereas the top dwellers lived on the surface in buildings and used human tech. Things were fine between the two groups, except in 2130, the Great Winter occurred. It was devastating, and the Slanter had no hope to speak of. Their leader, Minishen, son of the tribe's founder, had to do something to save his people, and out of desperation, he did something that would have lasting consequences upon the tribe. He invented a religion. He preached that the West Tech Research Facility was actually the Glow, a land of merciful living gods that created the tribe and kept them living. And it worked, because only the old, original Slanter knew the true nature of West Tech. Things got to a point where the new generation didn't remember where they came from, or the fact they were raccoons to begin with. They were curious about their origin, and simply put, they were willing to believe. Minishen saved the Slanter and died without telling anyone he made the whole religion up. So naturally, over time, people got more curious and wanted to meet their gods. It was hard trekking out and surviving the wasteland, but eventually, a group of top dwellers did manage to make it to the Glow. One made it back, and this incident resulted in heightened tension between the top dwellers and den dwellers. While the top dwellers believe the account of one of their own, the den dwellers deny it, and war might break out because of it. This is where the player comes in. They'd arrive at the peak of this conflict, receiving a quest to prove the Glow gods aren't real. Bringing back proof would make you allies with the tribe, and even earn you the respect of the den dwellers. There'd also be additional quests, such as a search and rescue mission, saving a kidnapped Slanter from a liberal-hating survivalist. I'm not kidding. With a good reputation in the town, you'd be asked to help open trade lines for the Slanter. The hub is really the only proper option here. Meanwhile, if you tell the cons about the Burrows, they destroy the place. At the end of the day, I think it was the right call not to include the Slanter in the game. I feel their inclusion would have been too jarring, and gotten away from tackling how humanity's doing after the bombs. Even with mutants like the super mutants and the ghouls, you're seeing this twisted form of humanity corrupted by mankind's machinations. The Slanter are just kind of people raccoons. Still, it's an interesting read, with clear passion put into the writing and thought into the quest design. It's also interesting to think, what if? How it would have inspired future Fallout games if talking raccoons were featured in the first one. I mean, even without them, talking intelligent animals still became a thing in the series, and certain infamous mods. Yeah, so cutting these abominations was the correct decision, for sure. Jackarin is the unofficial name for the Overseer of Vault 13, the same Overseer who exiles the Vault Dweller who saved their home. The reason I say unofficial name is because he doesn't technically have that name in-game or in the Fallout Bible. It's just something found in the concept art drawn by Leonard, and even Leonard himself didn't call him by this name afterward. But getting back on track, this isn't a goofy theory that Overseer man's secretly evil. Genuinely speaking, there's a solid case to be made that the Overseer sent you out into the wasteland to die. And I'm not talking about the banishment either. I'm talking straight from the start. First time leaving the vault and seeing sunlight, you were meant to be cooked. The game was rigged from the start. There's a ton to untangle here, so I'm just going to start with the motivation. The reason the Overseer sends you to die is to preserve the Vault way of life, evil social experiments included. And objectively speaking, this already happens at the end of the game. You're exiled from Vault 13, told you're a hero, but you have to leave, because of what you represent.
Everyone will want to talk to you. Every youngster will look up to you and want to emulate you. And then what? They'll want to leave. What happens to the Vault if we lose the best of a generation? What if we are the only safe place in the world? You just gave us back all these lives. I can't take the chance of losing them. I've made a lot of tough decisions since I took this position, but none of them harder than this one. You saved us, but you'll kill us. I'm sorry. You're a hero, and you have to leave.
You're exiled from Vault 13, told you're a hero, but you have to leave, because of what you represent. The Vault keeps people safe from a dangerous wasteland, but you've proven you can survive it and become a hero in it. It's only natural people would want to follow in your footsteps, do the same thing, leave the Vault behind. So, the Overseer exiles you. It's even stated in the Fallout Bible he wants to keep the social experiment going. He doesn't want you to ruin it, or uncover it for that matter. Now that we know the Overseer is really keen on preserving Vault life, what proof is there that the Overseer would want you gone from the start? Well, consider what Tim Kaine says about low intelligence characters. The reason they might have been chosen to go out and find a water chip is because there might have been an incentive to help the gene pool out. And if you read into that a bit more, the way people were chosen to find a water chip is picking straws. People who included a low intelligence Max Stone, a former thief and granddaughter of a Russian diplomat named Natalia who's interested in the outside world, and a group leader named Albert who wants to leave the Vault and is very charismatic. All characters who in some way, subtly or not, rock the boat, be it with their genetics or their yearnings. Heck, outside of pre-made characters, just look at some of the dialogue choices you get. The Overseer, who wants to preserve normalcy in the Vault, isn't gonna appreciate any of this. So, in the same way a stupid character can get screwed over, how them drawing sticks gets rigged so they get sent out to die, is it that much of a stretch to suggest the Overseer would also send any political dissident to their death? That the Vault Dweller was sent to die? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching Volume 3 of the Classic Fallout Iceberg. Only one more volume to go, and I'm gonna be honest, it's been a lot of work, but I am glad you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope you stick around for the ending. Also, if you ever want to support the channel, there's links for donations and my Patreon page down below. If money is an issue, feel free to give me any feedback or video ideas down below. For example, I've been collecting some entry ideas for the Classic Fallout Iceberg from you guys for Volume 4, and this is going to be your last chance to give me any you might have. You might just get yourself a shout out and get your idea featured in the video. But again, thank you for watching. Much more to come. In the meantime, stay safe out there.